I'm Jim Heald. I'll be your host today for the Economic Development Council's Vision of Progress. On today's segment, we're going to be talking about the STEM curriculum and its importance to the economic development of Okaloosa County. STEM, of course, is science, technology, engineering, and math. And with me, we have two experts in the local area on the STEM curriculum and its importance. I'd like to introduce Dwight Howard, who is the Chief Operating Officer of J&P Campkin Industries. And with him is Dr. Jack Azzaretto, who is a professor of the Professional and Community Leadership at the University of West Florida. Thank you both for coming.
Thank you, Jim, for having us.
Thank you.
Hey, Dwight, I'd like you to start off with, tell us a little bit about J&P Campkin Industries and how your company needs and uses the STEM workforce.
Be happy to. We are a small disadvantaged business, service disabled veteran 8A company. We've been very successful in the time we've been in business. We started in 2002, and in 2011 we were selected as the SBA Subcontractor of the Year for the nation. The same year we won an Excellence Award from DLA, the Defense Logistics Agency. And it has been a challenge for us in the STEM discipline. And our part of it, even though we do use mechanical and electrical engineers and we use process engineers, but the hardest thing that we find to fill is the technical positions, machining positions, welding positions, metal treatment positions, and there just doesn't seem to be a pipeline to supply small manufacturing businesses with these type of skills. We do a lot of on-the-job training. We do the TechMan training. In our plant in Alabama, we do some training there that's furnished by the state, but most of it's on-the-job or in-house training for what we need. And it's extremely difficult now to find a fully qualified machinist or a fully qualified welder, and we do some very high-tech jobs in the aerospace side of it. The aerospace welding of aluminum, titanium is a pretty technical side, and on the other side, where the machine operator and programmer is, we have a very difficult time of finding those that will come off the street and go to work. We have to put a lot of training in that. And I would just tell any young person now that if you're a machinist or a welder, we got lots of positions for you. It's a very lucrative career right now because there's a shortage of those people.
Well, thanks, Dwight. I can certainly echo that in my own business, that we need a lot of those technical skills that are sometimes very hard to find. But luckily, we've got a very good university system and school system here. And Jack, can you tell us a little bit about University of West Florida and how you support the STEM needs for this county?
Sure, Jim. I'm happy to do so. I think we should broaden that to talk about education, creating a pipeline, or in some cases, as Dwight has indicated, maybe failing to create that pipeline or concentrating too much on other things. I think the first thing, we are very fortunate in Okaloosa County to have a wonderful school system. I mean, we have a top-notch school system here. And then coupled with that is the vocational training that we have here, the adult and vocational training that we have here. We have a wonderful set of colleges and universities that includes, of course, the University of West Florida, Embry-Riddle, Northwest Florida State College, and others, Troy, in our area. And it's the role, I think, of the educational system to help prepare our workforce for the careers that await them. And as Dwight said, Jim, I think that sometimes I would encourage anyone, of course, to go on to post-secondary or higher education. But, you know, I think we also need to look strategically at what the workforce needs are and where there's jobs. And it may be that someone coming out of high school wants to go in one of those high-paying jobs that Dwight has just said is going unfilled. And so I think we have to look at it as a total picture of education, both in our institutional settings like colleges and universities, and also OJT within your firms themselves. That's what's going to stimulate our economic development process.
You're absolutely right, and we've been lucky enough to use some of the capabilities that are present over at University of West Florida to train some of our workforce, so I do appreciate it. Now Jack, you've been very involved for a number of years in the Okaloosa-Walton Workforce Development Board. What is your role on that board, and how does STEM fit into that workforce system?
Well, I think Dwight also is involved in the Workforce Development Board. I've been involved now for going on 6 years. I sit on the executive committee, and also I am chairman of the Business Competitiveness Council. Before I describe the BCC, or Business Competitiveness Council, I do want to say that our workforce board here locally, led by Martha Miller as chair of our workforce board, and Linda Sumlin as our wonderful executive committee. It is such an effective organization. Why is it effective? Because the partnerships that are created with businesses like the ones that you run and operate, with EDC, and with the education system, we are very fortunate to be in this region and have such an effective workforce board. The Business Competitiveness Council specifically looks at the educational partners, employment, and economic development, E3, how that comes together, the synergy within those three functions or segments, and then we look at how to respond to local business and economic development needs. That's what we do. And Dwight's been a member of the BCC for many, many years, and I think we're effective at what we do.
I certainly agree with that. Dwight, now you have another role. I know you're the vice chairman this year of the Economic Development Council of Okaloosa County. How does that fit into the STEM workforce, fit into business development and the recruitment of new businesses into our local area?
Well, I think it's very important that, like Jack said, I serve also as the vice chairman of the workforce board and on the Business Competitive Council. I think the link between the two gives us a vision for Okaloosa County, and if you look at the projects that the EDC has on board today, and you just take the manufacturing name that's in the project, and that doesn't necessarily mean they're doing the same kind of manufacturing I do, but if you just take the manufacturing name, recently we just added that up, and it was about 1,900 jobs. Right. And these are businesses that have committed to come to Okaloosa County. These are businesses that have made an investment and are looking for a decision in Okaloosa County. Well, the workforce board that's coupled with the EDC and sharing those projects, we take that as a vision of the future. Now, there's probably, I would estimate, 4,000 to 5,000 manufacturing jobs presently in just the defense contractors in our county.
Right.
But then we look at who's coming and what the skill sets are going to be for that. And we don't only look at the project. We look at the Haas Center's surveys. We look at the state information and the national information.
And sustainable wages too, right?
Very sustainable wages. One of the things that we do now is look at the training programs, the sustainable wage, and we look at the availability of people. Now, it's very important that recently our governor signed an educational bill that says we're going to award schools for the technical application, or the STEM application, if you will. And a lot of people don't focus a lot on the technology part of what we're talking about here in the STEM. I think that's tremendously important because, as you know, everybody's involved in the IT side of their job today with our cell phones and our laptops and all that technology. Now, if you take that into the manufacturing area, it just multiplies because of your programming for the machines and your welding, your metal treatment, your assembly, all that's involved in the technology side of it. Don't get me wrong, Jack. I tell you that I'm like you. I think that everybody should go to the highest level in education that they can obtain. But if you look at the stats, about 50% of the people don't even go to college. And of that 50%, only 50% of them finish college. So there is some, I was watching Fox News this morning. They were talking about the opportunity for people that don't go to college. And looking at what college costs today, and if you can get one of these high-paying jobs, it might be a good idea to look at that and then continue your education farther later on.
Absolutely.
You know, and to build off what Dwight said, I mean, I think sometimes when we look at STEM, we think of the aerospace industry, we think of engineers and aerospace engineers and the high end. But as Dwight has already indicated, it also can mean technology infused in all career occupations. We've been very lucky. Our senator has sponsored the CAPE Act, which was passed, and it speaks to exactly what Dwight said. What it does is reward students with certifications, industry certifications.
Absolutely.
It rewards the schools and their teachers for encouraging them to do that. And again, something that Dwight said is so important. That is really technology cuts across many different occupations and careers. And so it's important, whether it's be manufacturing or aerospace engineers, to have that kind of technology. I don't care where it is. And right now we're emphasizing that in our school systems. And the other thing I wanted to pick up on what Dwight said is, you know, if a person wants to move right into a high-paying job right now, there's nothing that says later on, as they become a supervisor, as they move on in their career, you know, most of my students in my class are adult working students. They've, for whatever reason, stopped out and now come back. They can pick up that degree as the need occasions.
And I think we're doing that some now, Jack. As a matter of fact, the TechMan training that has been sponsored, I know your employees have taken advantage of it, so have mine, and I personally have taken advantage of it. But you get them in the classroom, and that kind of stimulates the need for a further education. So you'll see some of those folks come back and take courses and obtain a degree. And I think that might be, based on what I heard at Fox News this morning and from a national program, they were recommending that maybe later on you go get that student loan, or maybe you look at the value or the need for the job that you're pursuing and see if that's going to work for you when you graduate. And it might be a good idea to enter a high wage, a high skilled job, and then continue your education later. And that's always an option.
And oftentimes employers pay for that too.
Oftentimes they do pay for that.
So they won't.
Absolutely.
So a student wouldn't have to incur a loan. Oftentimes, there's a lot of companies out there that that would pay or help pay.
At least offset.
Defray the cost of education.
And what a great discussion, because that's exactly the types of things that we need to emphasize. I know in my own company, over half of our workforce has some type of a certificate to be able to say that they are qualified, whether it's welding or heavy equipment operations, or a lot of my workforce needs electronics technicians. The certificate for that, and Jack, I know you and I worked together quite a few years ago to get that capability into the University of West Florida. I really appreciate you helping on that.
Before we leave that, Dwight may want to talk about what Northwest Florida State College is doing with their welding initiative.
Yeah, they've recently got a grant to teach a welding class, and that's in progress right now. It's needed around the county, and I think it's going to be a big plus for us going forward. And there's been a lot of other things in our county that I'm very proud of. Like I spoke with the EDC and the Workforce Board, and we're a team. And by knowing what the requirement is and having academia respond to the requirement is very important. Now, there is one part of that I've been emphasizing for a while, and I'll emphasize again. High school students. In our company, we have an aging workforce. I don't want to say elderly, but an aging workforce. It's unusual to walk through my plant and see anybody under 30. And I say to the high school students that's graduating, just like we talked about, is there a possibility you could take one of these jobs and then continue your education later? Or the 50% that doesn't go to college might want to look at this. This is a high-wage, high-skill job, and they're readily available today, I tell you. So I think it's important, and I think what the governor did was very important to be able to incentivize that and get those folks thinking in that direction, that there is a job, a good-paying job, that's available out here today. And I think here we have promoted that through our high school systems, through our universities, and just the training that we get from TechMan is a certificate that says you've completed a certain amount of training. And it works. I actually presented some of those certificates to my last AS 9100 auditor, and he was very pleased with them. So it definitely works.
And that's something that the BCC, the Business Competitiveness Council of the Workforce Board, we're working on as an initiative, again, thanks to Dwight, to get out to the school systems, our local school systems, and speak to the teachers and the guidance counselors
Absolutely.
that interact with students to let them know, that there are careers out there and that there's jobs, very well-paying jobs waiting for students, to fill those positions. Dwight, you yourself went out to one of our schools, I think it was Choctaw, and spoke to a group like that, didn't you?
I did. As a matter of fact, it was the Amarillo Aerospace program there, and I spoke to about 40 students at Crestview High School, two different classes. I got the end of one and started the other, and I came to Choctaw the next day and did the same thing. Very interesting, very interesting. Of course, all the students, 100% of them told me they're going to finish college, and I pointed out the stats that says, well, maybe not every one of you, but I think it gave them an idea. They all wanted to fly an airplane, and that's exciting, believe me. My incentive ride was exciting, but somebody's got to build it before you can fly it.
That's right.
And I think that the pipeline that we need from our high schools into our manufacturing segment in Okaloosa County is critical now.
It absolutely is. Well, it is so great to have two people that are so passionate on these boards. I really appreciate your guys volunteering to be on these things and pushing STEM forward. Jack, I understand that you were involved with a statewide workforce award recently.
Well, I was very pleased that that our chairman of the board, Martha Miller, and the executive director, Linda Sumlin, had put me in, unbeknownst to me, for a statewide award, the first Florida Department of Education Partnership Award. And there were 24 of the workforce boards submitted nominees, and I was very fortunate to be selected and was presented the plaque and honored at the Education Workforce Partnership conference in Orlando this past December. So I'm very, but again, it doesn't speak to me. What it speaks to is the partnerships.
Well, let me say this, Jack. It's a well-deserved award.
Well,
it's a well-deserved award.
Thank you. But it speaks to the partnerships.
It is the partnerships that make all of this work. Since we're talking about the workforces today, how about the workforce for tomorrow? How do we, what are the most important factors in contributing to our region's economic growth? What do we need to do?
I think we're doing a lot of what we need to do. I would say the most important part of that is, like Jack alluded to a little earlier, we need to have the counselors in high school to understand what we do. We need them to be educated so that they can educate and guide the students. So I think the involvement of the high school principals, the superintendent, the Board of Education, all that has to play a part in making sure that we equip those counselors to give the students the right advice. I think that the recent bill that I keep talking about is going to be a big incentive to do that. If you get money based on the technical education that you provide. And I don't know what the formula is, but it is a formula that says that we're going to reward you for doing that. I think that's great. I think that's what happens. Now we got to educate the counselors, to educate the students and the teachers so they know that this is available. It was pretty amazing when I went to both high schools. They didn't know much about manufacturing at that point. And in the aerospace business, as I said before, it's pretty important, you know.
They don't know the alternatives that are there. You know,
That's the
so often here in Okaloosa County, we've got the tourist business and we've got the defense support business, which is mainly centered around what's happening on Eglin Air Force Base. But we need to look at a more diverse economy, something that the students that are coming up in the pipeline can say, I don't need to go work in one of those two sectors, that there's something else out there. STEM can help them make that an opportunity for them. But we've been talking mainly about engineering and manufacturing. STEM is more than that. I know you talked a little bit about technology, Jack. How about the science part of this?
Well, and I think the science, you know, since we're talking about STEM, but your question also focused on the workforce of tomorrow. And I want to just take a slight diversion to say that as we emphasize STEM, including science and technology, that we don't lose sight of what I hear all the time from employers, and that is some of the soft skills, a work ethic, how to dress appropriately, how to conduct an interview. Now, again, I know we're talking about STEM, but I hear, and we hear it on the Business Competitiveness Council all the time, if I just had somebody who knows when to show up, how to show up, and ready for work. So those are skills that we can't underestimate in our focus with STEM.
And the science part of it is extremely important. Robotics, for instance. We use it in our plant a lot. We have robotic welders that will weld a 14-foot seam. And if you look at being competitive today, the way you're competitive is you improve your workforce. You get your workforce to where they can save seconds. And you don't need to be counting hours and minutes, you need to be counting seconds. And that technology makes that happen. Now you take the math part of it, and that's across all of it, because you can't do anything with that math. And you know, some of us have degrees that we got some time ago that said ABM, all but math, you know. But math is extremely important today in any of the STEM. So we need to start even in grade school to be able to let the students know how important this is in their future.
Absolutely, and you know, when you're talking about technology, I know that we've gone as much as we can to paperless. Everything that we do is dealing with the computers. We have all of our documentation on the computers. We submit our time cards on the computers. So being computer literate, not necessarily having to do the programming, but knowing those back-end things are so important. Jack, I can't emphasize enough what you just said about the softer skills. The first time somebody shows up and our work starts at 7 o'clock and they show up at 7:05 and express surprise that they were expected to be on time, says something, and we need to teach that as we're going along. Well, we're just about wrapping up. Dwight, do you have any last thoughts that you want to leave?
I'd just like to echo Jack's comment about the soft skills. You need those, and you need those to be able to do STEM, and you will use those through the rest of your life. So those soft skills need to be taught to you. You need to be there on time, you need to be responsible, and you need to do the best job you can. And I think if we employ that to everyone, we'd have a better workforce.
You're absolutely right. Jack, any parting comments?
Well, I would just say I admire the work done by the EDC. I think the EDC does a tremendous job in trying to diversify our economy and again, in making the public aware of what the jobs are and how important STEM is to our local region.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in to Vision of Progress. This is the Economic Development Council of Okaloosa County. Thanks to Dr. Jack Azzaretto from the University of West Florida and Dwight Howard from JPC Industries. Thank you for all of your volunteer work on the various boards. I'm Jim Heald. I've been your host for the past few minutes. Please join us on our next installment of the Economic Development Council of Okaloosa County's Vision of Progress.